What's up, Chumbags? Welcome to the HQ. My name is Kandula, and today I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Nick Sivak, to talk about nothing really in particular. Now, before we get to the exciting stuff, you might have noticed that we had a week of outage on the podcast for the first time ever, and that's because Nick had a little bit of outage. So Nick, I'll let you tell your story for what happened last week.
Yeah, so we were about, I don't want to say like maybe a half an hour before our starting time, and this big rain and windstorm swept through. It sounded really weird. It was all just like very violent wind, and it just kind of went like whoop, and then like started blasting outside, and my power got knocked out, and it stayed out for 3 days. So
yeah, we were like, oh, let's just shoot it tomorrow, and then let's just shoot it tomorrow. But yeah, no, that was it was out for a while. But well, I guess Nick, I know for sure at least one of the things you did, but while your power was out, what were you playing?
Yeah, so I specifically grabbed my 3DS because I was like, well, I might as well play something portable and handheld, so that way I can, have some sort of entertainment while all the lights and everything are not working. So I grabbed my 3DS. I tried a demo that I had downloaded for a game called Pokemon Shuffle, and
I remember Pokemon Shuffle.
Gave up halfway through the tutorial, so that clearly wasn't taking my interest. So instead, I played through Kirby's Adventure, which I've had downloaded for years, and I guess like never played. Apparently, I had a save file in there that said I was on World 2, but I have zero recollection of that ever happening. So I was in a bit of a retro mood. There was a different game that I wanted to start playing to bring to the podcast, but Kirby kind of overtook that, at least for the time being. So, yeah, Kirby's Adventure,
Have you finished it, or is it?
Yeah, I played through the entire thing.
Oh, okay.
It's not that long. I have to check real quick. I don't remember what console it was made for. Oh, okay, so it was developed for NES. So this is a 3D version of like a 3D Classics version, I think they call it. So Nintendo kind of put out these 3DS specific versions of a lot of retro games, and so you can actually turn on the 3D slider and it separates like the background and the foreground, which I played for like 5 seconds. Like, I honestly don't use it that often. But yeah, I played through the entire game while my power was out, just chipping away at it instead of using my phone, so I could conserve battery power for that. And yeah, I feel like if you play one 2D Kirby game, you've played most of them with a couple of, different mechanical differences. But
right,
yeah, it was a simple, fun platformer. You have all the different copy abilities. The music was really nice in it. The art style, for it being like pixel art, still really holds up. The first Kirby game I ever played was Kirby Squeak Squad on the DS, and
Squad. I haven't even heard of that one.
From what I remember, that game also has pixel art, but I might be wrong in remembering that. But that's kind of where most of my Kirby knowledge really started and ended. Like, I played like a couple of side things or like the demo for Forgotten Land and stuff like that, but I never really committed to another full Kirby game aside from Epic Yarn, which I played at the end of last year.
Yeah.
And yeah, this felt like right at home with Squeak Squad. It's really like weird to describe these kind of Kirby games because it's like a Mario platformer essentially, but because it's designed to be like an easier experience, like there's all the platforms, but you could also just float as Kirby and like fly over everything if you want to, or just like dodge the enemies. There's boss fights in the game, which are pretty fun. There's this cool little mini game at the end of a level where he like jumps on a trampoline, and if you tap the button at the right time, like you'll go higher like off the trampoline and you'll score like different points or 1-ups and stuff like that. But yeah, essentially that's really the gist of it. You just kind of go from level to level. You eventually fight a boss, and then you're on to the next one.
I mean, that's what those you got to you establish the formula, and that's what those games were. They just once you got a solid base, you just rinse and repeat with new visual kind of levels to get the fatigue out of there.
Yeah, and so I don't really have much to share on it. Like, I had a fun time. It definitely did its job while there was no power, and it satisfied
versus no power, just staring at the darkness. It was a pretty good time.
So yeah, I also didn't want to play something a bit more. It's gonna sound so funny saying this, but I didn't want to play anything a bit more demanding because I wasn't sure if it was just gonna drain the 3DS, and then I'd be with.
I actually just recently turned on my 3DS. It's been sitting in my drawer for like 2 years at this point. But I was just like, I was like, I took out the case while I was looking for something else. I was like, I wonder if this thing still has power. Over half the battery still in there.
Those batteries kick ass. Like, they're
good. I just turned on, like, I just slid the 3D slider on, and it was, I think the Nintendo 3DS has this unique feature of every time you go back to it, and the first time you use the 3D, you're like, damn, I forget it's this effective. But then I'm like, all right, let's turn it off.
Exactly.
It's cool for the first glance, but then practically, I don't find myself really gravitating toward it. But I will say that we'll go back and forth because I was also in a retro mood, which is part of the reason why I returned to the 3DS, and then I found that I had no interest in playing. I think it was I don't even know what game was in there, but I recently played through all of Yu-Gi-Oh! The Sacred Cards, and that was I've been meaning to talk about it, and then on the podcast, and then eventually I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna write it because I just had all the thoughts in my head, put it to words, and you can read all about it over on respawnstation.com. Long and short of it is that I surprisingly liked it. I think there's the kind of the thing that the game leaves me with is this weird sensation of, well, to set the stage, all right? So you're playing as a character that you name, but you can't customize any other thing about them. Like, it just happened to work out for me because that default character is wearing orange, so I'm like, that's totally me. But if you don't like orange, you're shit out of luck. But so maybe I don't know if that had something else to kind of enhance my experience, but you play as a friend of Yugimoto and Joey Wheeler and all the the gang as they're competing for or in this Battle City tournament. And what I find interesting is that it does the typical, like, you're in this pre-existing world. You're just the friends. You're friends with the characters, and like it's a spin-off or whatever. And the unique thing is that I actually think it works to some degree of, for one summer, you kind of just happen to be, crossing paths with Yugimoto. And, it's like this fleeting thing of like, you were there, you experienced it, but then you're gone. You're both, kind of, which I think is a kind of a nice metaphor for the game experience as well. Cause you're spending a few hours with Yugi and his friends in this world for a little bit. And so I found it actually pretty compelling in that way, despite not having a very crazy story. I mean, it was just like, we're in a tournament, but actually the world is going to end if you don't win.
Classic.
So it's pretty typical in that way. And they also do the bold thing of, you're like, Yugi is like this legendary, he's like a fucking god in Yu-Gi-Oh! And you actually beat him, and then you have to beat the final guy, which I was like, was that what would happen in the show? Like, I don't think Yugi's really kind of like going down by some dude wearing orange like that. But anyway, I digress. So, Nick, what else have you been playing other than Kirby's Adventure?
Not much. I've been continuing my watching a lot more than my playing recently. I've been bouncing between Last of Us Season 2, Andor Season 2.
Okay.
and
Yes, yeah.
a movie series for a game that I'm also starting that you graciously gifted me for my birthday back in March, which was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I've been rewatching all the movies. Funny enough, I rewatched Temple of Doom the other night, and that was the first time I had rewatched that movie since like middle school.
Better or worse? Better or worse?
Better. I was cracking up at several
Oh.
parts in that movie, and I was like, I didn't remember any of this as a kid, so I was pleasantly surprised with
good.
Temple of Doom. But yeah, I'm done with all the movies, and I have started Great Circle. I started it earlier today,
Oh, okay.
but because of the GTA storm that was also unleashed today, I didn't get far. I'm only like 15 to 20 minutes in, so like I basically have nothing to say at this point on Indiana Jones. But tune in next week, because I will certainly have more to say about it next week. The only other thing that I really played this week was a demo that Devolver dropped, which was for a game called Mycopunk, which is...
This is the sort of first-person, like, Borderlands, but with a different kind of color palette game, right?
Kind of.
Moves like Apex Legends.
I didn't really understand it fully from the trailer. Playing the demo, it makes a lot more sense. It's like a first-person version of Helldivers, or like an extraction shooter, kind of. It's
okay.
With like co-op elements in it. So essentially, you are these characters. You select like a character from a list of 4, and they have some unique like movement abilities and things like that. And then you can group up with other players, or you can play solo. The demo has 2 different mission types, and basically you're dropped into a planet for the specific mission. And then you are given like a couple of objectives that you have to complete. And then once you complete those objectives, you call back in your drop pod, and you have to, hold out for like a minute and a half or, 2 minutes. Exactly like that. So it felt very reminiscent of Helldivers to me while I was playing it. At first, I didn't have a great experience with it, which was surprising because, it's looking at the trailer, it's up my alley. It's Devolver Digital. It's an interesting art style. It's a first-person shooter. It's like, I'm going to give this a try, which is what led me to download it. And the first mission that I did was this one where you have to... There's like these spores that have been like growing along like a pipeline, essentially. And you have to go along this pipeline and shoot at the spores to break them up while these enemies are spawning in around you. And the pipe just felt like it went on like for a really long time, and like it would break it up with like these bigger chunks that you would have to attack with enemies constantly spawning around you. But I was playing by myself, and so I was like, maybe the next time, like I'll try to join like a random person or crew and see if that's better. And it is better with other people. So
okay.
The other mission type that they have was a lot more fun. And instead of just shooting these spores on a pipeline, essentially you're calling down a railgun and like assembling this railgun, and it's specifically an interplanetary or an intergalactic railgun. And it also has, the game has this kind of like, corporate dystopia kind of backdrop as well. And so what you're doing is you call in the railgun, and then there's a console there. And once everything is set up, you use the console, and it gives you like a star map. And you have to send out these like sonar pings to try to see where a opposing corporate ship is in space. And then once you target it, it has to power up or whatever. And once it powers up, you have this really cool moment where it blasts a shot into the sky, and then you get like a giant explosion in the sky. And this is where the Helldivers thing kind of felt in, because it felt like a specific mission in those games where you send like a ICBM missile essentially, and it makes like this giant nuke. The thing that I found really cool about this though is the visual for the explosion in the sky is, you know, very dramatic, like the lighting changes and everything like that. And you see these chunks, you know, coming out from the explosion that actually ends up turning into debris that crashes down on your planet and starts becoming hazards. And so while you're trying to defend for your drop zone, you're also having these like giant meteorites coming in from this explosion. And it just had like this really awesome, like big sense of scale that was just like really cool, and I wasn't expecting, because like you see it in the sky and you're like, oh, that's a cool effect that they did, and then like a couple seconds later, like I got like an indicator on my screen and it just like smashed into me, and I was like,
well,
oh
yeah,
geez.
there's a difference between like the, you know, the skybox kind of just being a different, you know, texture or whatever versus like breaking that kind of immersion and actually, or breaking the kind of your bubble and actually
impacting like your gameplay and stuff. So yeah, that one I had a lot more fun with, and like I said, it was a lot more fun with other players. Currently, there wasn't a whole lot of like synergy between characters and stuff. Like one of the characters that I used originally had a grapple hook. That's kind of what I like to gravitate towards in these like kind of movement shooter stuff, is having like the
Batman approach.
Yeah, essentially, like in Apex Legends, I used whatever the robot was that had the grapple hook and everything. Tried to get as close as possible to Titanfall, essentially. But like the other character that I tried out has like a jetpack that you can use, and it was all kind of like personal. It felt like it was easier when you grouped up with other players to take out like enemies and everything. But I felt like the gear and stuff was more geared towards like individual play. But there was one thing that a different player used that was pretty cool, and that they put down this giant pole, and then from there everybody can grapple to that pole and use that to like move around. So it's like it feels like they're playing with some cool ideas to like try to give like different bonuses and like movement possibilities to different players in like your squad and everything like that. And yeah, it grew on me a bit more while I was playing. It definitely feels early, so I'm not exactly certain when the game is planned to be released. And obviously it seems like on the map, essentially when you're picking your missions, that there's going to be like different areas of this planet, or like different planets in general that you can go to, so that'll give you some visual variety, and it seems like there's going to be more mission variety, obviously. But yeah, it seems like it's going to be a cool budget-friendly indie take on like an extraction shooter or like a Helldivers, if those are games that people, you know, listening are interested in. That was kind of the vibes that I got from it. Less so Borderlands, in that there wasn't like loot that you're picking up. It's not like different weapons and stuff. Like you have your loadout and you get trinkets and things like that, but it's seemingly used for something else entirely, like your level ups, which I also had kind of like this cool kind of system where it's a grid of hexagons, and then your upgrades have like different shapes, and you have to kind of like slot in the different shapes on your grid to try to maximize.
Tetris?
Kind of, yeah. The shapes are a lot bigger and the grid is a lot bigger, so it's like I would say it's more like a Resident Evil inventory screen is your upgrade screen, if that makes sense. The one thing that I also wasn't a huge fan of were the enemy designs. It's got this weird like fungal kind of mutated, I guess you would say, kind of approach to the enemy designs, and the enemies, you can blast off different parts of them and they'll like morph to other parts of other enemies essentially. So it's kind of cool in theory, but what it ends up being is just like a bunch of like shapes and lines, and it's very noisy on screen, and you can't really see like what exactly is attacking you or how you're taking damage at many parts. And there was also like a little bit of desync where like I was shooting at enemies and then they would just kind of like teleport to a different area and stuff, that it didn't feel intentional. So I think there's definitely some areas where the game can improve, but like I mentioned a bit ago, like I did end up having fun with it at the end. I think it's definitely a game where it's going to be very situational. If you have like a group of friends that you can play with, or if you're playing with randoms, I think it is a better
Right.
experience currently than just going in and playing solo, which
Playing solo,
honestly
yeah.
might be obvious for this type of game. But yeah, that was
You
the demo. I put like a couple hours into it and had fun.
This is currently slated just for 2025, so we don't really
Okay.
know when it'll come out. Probably, probably May 26th, given Devolver's track record. May 26th, 2026, I think is a good time for this to come out.
Mm-hmm.
But no, this is certainly the time of the extraction shooter. I personally wanted to get to two specific extraction shooters that have obviously been very, very hot topics right now. The first is Marathon, and the other is Arc Raiders. And if I'm being honest, I think Arc Raiders actually caught my attention more than Marathon, just because I don't know if you've seen this, Nick. The clips and the energy that I get from Arc Raiders, which, from my understanding, is the latest game from the team at Embark, who I believe also previously made um, the finals. So they've kind of gotten that first person sort of Battlefield esque shooter out. Now they're working on this third person extraction shooter, and it really has the energy of like Helldivers 2 when it first came out, where people are experiencing it, and there's like it's a world where um, a lot of dynamic kind of cinematic events can happen. And so in the grand scheme of things, I had time to play neither, but both of them did have their kind of alpha tests. And it was interesting that, the Steam charts for both games were sort of inverse. Essentially, like the player count for Marathon kept going down, and the player count for Arc Raiders kept going up.
Not
I
a
don't
good
necessarily
sign.
think that's a yeah. I don't think that's to the credit. I don't think it's necessarily a sign of doom just yet for
Right.
Marathon, or if it's like a success story for Arc Raiders. But I do think it is a trend that might reflect kind of what happens when the games obviously hit the market. And hopefully, whenever the next test happens, I'm able to kind of set time aside to actually play one or both of them. So
Mm-hmm.
the reason why I wasn't able to play those though is because I've been playing other stuff that have been taking up my time a little bit more. I'll talk about the stuff that I've played kind of a little bit, not, in tandem, I'll say. So, first of all, Fragpunk. We're talking about shooters, and this is the latest hero shooter with a little bit of a twist. If you don't know, Fragpunk has you essentially breaking cards that dynamically impact the game that you're about to play, or the match that you're about to play. So as you are playing through the match, you'll get awarded shards that between rounds, you get to, kind of spend as a team on kind of upgrades for specific, or not upgrades, like selection of specific cards. And so it's like a
Okay.
random 3 cards get selected, and one card will be 2 shards, another card will be like 5 shards. So you as a team have to kind of decide, okay, let's get this one or this one. And these can range from, enemy bullets will move slower, or you can track enemies footsteps, to like big head mode, or enemies will drop the weapons after they run out of ammo, or like,
Oh, that's
after the
funny.
first magazine. There's one where I think like pigs will just follow you, and just kind of like nibble at your enemy's feet. There's one that casts one of the bomb sites into like a fog, and there's phantoms inside that like are weak, but they are like distracting to the enemies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it can get a little crazy at times, but I think that's kind of where the fun of the game really lies. I played it for about 3 hours this past weekend. And by the way, just in case, if you don't know anything about Fragpunk or just kind of this genre in general, I would say it's sort of like a Counter Strike, where you have two teams, and one side is attacking, one side's defending. There's two bomb sites, and or conversion sites, maybe. I think that's what it's called in here. And you have to go in, and the attackers have to plant the converter, and the defenders have to defend. And if everyone on the enemy team is dead, then you win. And 4 rounds is a total victory. It's like best of 7, I think, is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I think that the kind of first impressions, the aesthetics of this game are really strong. Um, it's really colorful. It has some really cool ideas in terms of, like there's one gun in the game that is essentially a guitar, but it's also like it's a guitar that your character kind of plays, but it's a double barrel shotgun too. So it kind of like plays very interestingly. And I'm pun intended there. But there's there's also, I think like 10 or so different Lancers, I believe. See, look, the terminology is out the door, right? Like, I'm not gonna, like there's heroes that you buy with in-game currency, or you can purchase it as well. There's a battle pass, of course. There's a store where you can get stuff. These are kind of like, it's a free-to-play shooter. Released in March on PC, and it just last week it hit consoles on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S.
Gotcha.
So I think, look, if you're looking for a hero shooter to kind of get in at the ground level, like for me, I find Valorant to be interesting to watch. I think Valorant tournaments are like, when you're watching the best of the best play, it's really cool. But every time I'm like thinking about getting into Valorant, I'm like, God, it's been out for so long. People are so baked into that community that it's just hard to really break through. This felt different, in terms of like, hey, I'm not totally losing it right away. There are definitely some games where you're getting stomped, and people are like, "Okay, some people picked up on this game faster than others."
Gotcha.
And for people like me, there are also not just the regular kind of shard mode. There's also team deathmatch, and free for all and stuff like that. And for those, it works on a personal level, so you can actually, pick what cards you want, and then as you're playing and getting shards, you can dynamically kind of activate them if they're active, or if they're passive, they're just kind of automatically on. So it changes up the gameplay in unique ways, and kind of adds like a new kind of level of strategy to it. And while I don't think I'm not gonna go pro, but I am curious to play a little bit more and kind of experience it, because I do think that what's there is welcoming enough for someone like me. I will also say that it has the kind of traditional level of character. It's like a traditional character roster. So some characters like look cool. There's like a robot. Obviously, you have to have some sort of a robot. Fun fact: the robot's called Chum, which is obviously good. And then there's like the characters with great physics. Like what I mean. I don't have to explain what that is. And so it really has like the full gambit in it. So it's trying to cast a wide net in that range. So. Hey, check it out. Go ahead.
How is the gunplay specifically? That's the one thing that I was the most curious about. Like, do you think that it stacks up to a lot of other contemporary stuff, or does it kind of like Mycopunk? Does it have like a bit of that more indie feel to it?
I think it actually feels very much so like it's very smooth, and it's very much so like a Counter-Strike or a Valorant, probably closer to Valorant in terms of. It is that precision based. It's the time to kill is very fast. Like, this is not a game where you're going to be turning on people, very fast. It's again, unless you're really engaging with those physics, in which case you will be turned on. But that's different. This is more like the first few headshots will seal the deal. So you got to get your shots right. And again, the characters also have like power ups and stuff. It can be a little bit overwhelming in that regard, but I'm personally of the belief that you should just dive in head first and then kind of figure it out dynamically, kind of while you're playing it. Or organically, I should say, while you're playing it, and it's kind of worked out better that way for me.
I guess I have one other question about it too, and it's because the whole kind of like special gimmick about this is those cards and everything. Did you feel in your 3 hours that you guys as like a team, specific card decisions actually did have an impact on you being able to get like an upper hand or like take a W? Or was it like, did it feel like it was just like, okay, this round we're doing this weird wacky modifier, and it still felt like more so down to just the individual gunplay?
No. I definitely think that there's some games where like some matches where you'll load in and you'll see, like when the match starts, you'll see what you picked and what your enemies picked.
Hmm.
And it's all based on the shards and stuff that your team has. So there's a chance that, one team won't have any uh cards or either because they don't have any shards or they're just going to save them for the next round where they can get more.
Hmm.
You can there's times where one team has zero and one team has all three cards, unlocked or whatever.
Sure.
But depending on how you play it, like the luck of the draw of what you get, you can go into certain matches and be like, oh, I'm 100% winning this, or I'm 100% losing this, because there's one where I had where the enemies had the bullets. Enemy bullets were slower, so they had that. So that meant my bullets were slower,
Mm.
and it felt like I was lagging. I was like playing, and it's like my bullets were not reaching them, and I was dying, and I was like, "What's going on?" And so like that one was an easy seal, sealed the deal for them. Um, and like the one where I was talking about where like it creates a fog and there's phantoms and everything.
Hmm.
That's more of like it's an inconvenience for them, and it's kind of like this atmospheric it just that like it changes the map a little bit for you.
Hmm.
So how you play that really change like will impact how what you get out of it, you know what I mean? So there's a gambit of what these cards can do. So in some instances, yeah, if you get lucky, there's definitely like the obvious choices that will get you the win.
Hmm. Yeah, it sounds like fun though. It was one that I was kind of curious on from trailers, but kind of like recent discussions we've been having. It's just like I don't know. Like, is this going to find its audience, or is this going to be another? It's going to have its moment, and that's it.
Don't even say X Defiant. How dare you? Yeah, I struggle to you know, vehemently support something with all my heart because I don't know when it'll be taken away from me. So and that's part of the the give and take of live service, which is a conversation that we'll be getting to eventually down the road from on this podcast because yeah, it's definitely one that if you want to play this game, then scream from rooftops and get people in and try to get the server's full, or I guess mainly actually get people to buy the battle pass or whatever.
Sure.
You got some rich friends, tell them to hop on Fragpunk, but hey, we don't know. Now that's a bit of the action. Obviously, just 3 hours of that. There's two other games I've been playing. I realize now as I'm saying it, I've almost exclusively been playing first-person shooters. So there's Fragpunk. I also played a lot of Warzone. I mean, probably the second most out of the next thing I'm going to talk about. And again, casual Warzone. Okay, I don't care what people say. It is so much better than regular Warzone because it feels like there's kind of it's just as intense in the late game, but it's not as like sweaty in the pregame, like or like in the early game.
Sure.
So you're not constantly um like looking over your shoulder in a way that it's like, oh, it's a fight I can't win.
Hmm.
I'm going against it in regular Warzone. There's people that I'm like, all right, that guy is bunny hopping, sliding. He's doing things I can't even fathom. Whereas I think on casual, everyone's on the same level, or at least it feels like it. And obviously there's some bots, so you're gonna have to weigh that out. Of like, oh, was that a real kill or was that a bot that I just killed? And like, do I take satisfaction in that?
Hmm.
But then there's also people with mics and there's communication going on, and so when you're getting to the late game and people are like, he's over there, and like you hear the panic in their voice and you're like, yeah, this is the game. So yeah, Warzone's been fun, and I have been getting some victories as well in casual, which is nice.
Nice.
But the game, ladies and gentlemen, the game I have been playing is Doom. I said it. I said I was gonna do it. And last week, I hopped in and I just, no real reservation, no expectation, just started playing Doom 2016. And this is one of those rare cases where, this game has been sitting on my backlog for 9 years at this point, right? And it not only delivers, but in certain ways, I think it exceeds what I was expecting from it.
That's what
Because
we like to hear,
I,
baby.
yeah, it is. There's so many times in Doom where I was just smiling at the fact that, like, oh my God, they're doing it. Like, like there's so many of those moments in it. And look, I'm definitely, there's going to be a full review that's coming for this game. But I really think what it has done with the 2016 version of reboot of Doom is like incredibly special because not only have they taken the DNA, the core of what Doom is and was, and then they reapply they applied it a beautiful coat of paint on it, so the game looks fantastic, and has all these modern like gore effects and brutal kills, but it has so much like personality, which again sounds counterintuitive because you have a protagonist who doesn't say anything. His primary mode of communication is his fists, just fucking ramming things. But at the same time, right away, you establish so much character with just the fact that like his response is "fuck this monitor, it's telling me to do shit." He's like completely like off the chain, and right away in like I think the second or third mission of the game is you have this guy who's like you have to shut down these argent I don't know the full kind of context for the wording or whatever, but like these
Mhm.
energy sources or whatever, you have to shut them down. And so he's like you go over to it and it's like, all right, now you got to shut it down, just make sure you're careful, and then he just starts fucking smashing it. And that's what you do for all three of them, so you just essentially shut down the entire fucking argent supply or whatever. And that sets the stage for, oh, this is the kind of character we're playing as. But then Doom is one of the rare cases of where, um, one, I think of the codexes in this game, the data stuff that you pick up, is like essential to the experience. And like it adds so much depth to the narrative that I think you would honestly be getting a different and frankly worse experience by not reading what the game is trying like has laying around. And it was a rare case of when usually in a video game I'll start off reading a lot of the stuff I pick up because I'm like, oh, this is a new game, let me see what it is.
Mhm.
And then as the game keeps going, I'll be like, all right, okay, we're gonna get it out of here. It kind of changes. But for Doom, I was like, the longer I would go, the more I'd be like, oh, what were they saying? What does that mean? Like I'm like getting into it.
Mhm.
And there's some really rewarding kind of sense of surprises maybe. I don't, like there's some really cool setups in that way too, because the one that I'll kind of refer to is what I think is the first real boss fight of the game, even though it's like halfway into the game. But you're going through this level, and first of all, when you pick up a codex, each kind of character has a codex, each enemy has a codex, area has a codex, and they'll all be like one of three or one of two, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And whatever you pick up will be you can miss the first one, and then have two of three, and then three of three or whatever. For the cyber demon, it was like I picked it up and I was like, oh, it's cyber demon, and then just kind of like reading, it was like two of three or whatever. So I was reading, I'm like, oh, okay, so it's like this skeleton they were putting together, but it turns out it's like it can reconnect and like rebuild tissue, and then obviously they do the obvious thing of putting the cybernetics into it so it's enhanced.
Mhm.
And there's this wonderful moment which happened live because I streamed the whole thing, but it's me going, huh, like it seems that we'll have like they're setting it up so that we have to face off against this cyber demon at one point, and then immediately, like, I didn't even get to finish my sentence when the doors get blasted open, and the cyber demon's grabbing me like a fucking chew toy and tossing me around.
Mhm.
And oh man, it's just pure adrenaline and chaos. And like oh, and then after you beat the cyber demon, which by the way, fantastic boss fight. No notes, id. I know you're looking for me for notes, but no notes for that one. Um, but after you beat it, you get the first entry in the codex. So that's
Ah,
almost
yeah.
like the codex itself tells you a little story in that way. And also, I think it adds a lot of like Nick, I mean, you read the codexes and stuff in your playthrough when you back when you played it in the day, when you played it
Probably
back in the day.
not. I
Okay,
honestly,
okay,
when it comes to Doom, like it's kind of like Souls for me, where it's like the inverse of what you were
sure.
experiencing. It's like I will start off reading it, and then eventually I get to the point where I'm like, okay, I just go back to blasting the guns
Yeah,
and
yeah,
shooting the
yeah.
demons. So yeah, when it comes to like lore of Doom, I'm like essentially the bare minimum is what I have going
Oh,
into
okay,
these
okay, okay.
things.
So, there's you know, first of all, there's some really cool moments in terms of and the important lore dumps they actually um narrate. So there's these like runes in hell that you can interact with where this guy with an incredible fucking voice is narrating like the saga of what the demons called the demon slayer, about this guy who's just fucking, he's ravenous for demons. Like he will,
Mm.
gets energy from killing demons or whatever, which is true because they drop health, of course. But there's, you know the how evil UAC is so apparent when you start reading the codexes, because it starts off and it's like, oh, welcome, like at the start of the game you're in the first kind of facility and it's like, oh, you're a tier 1 advocate, welcome to the UAC, we're in cutting edge of science. And by
Hmm.
the end they're like, welcome to tier 3, you have to attend the sacrifices and the ritual sacrifices, we're here for science and science will end it all. Like it's like like the
Uh-huh.
paradigm of what they're going for is completely shifted. And it makes for this like a villain that you really get to understand a different perspective of, obviously by the end of it, by reading the codexes. And so, long story short, I played through all of Doom, absolutely loved it, and I would dare say that it has climbed up to one of my favorite games of all time. It is just, again, I can't emphasize how rare it is to play a game that's been on your backlog for so long and not have it disappoint you.
Hmm.
um, and
That
so I
is
was
rare.
a little. Yes, and I was a little nervous about if I was gonna go right into Doom Eternal or not, but it was like a day after I beat Doom, and I was like, ah, man, I still got the itch. So I have jumped into Doom Eternal just like 2.5 hours or so, and first, it's really just first impressions. But first of all, this game feels so different. Like I was not
Hmm.
expecting it to look and feel different. Um, like structurally you're like in like a Star Trek fucking spaceship, and you're portaling into these places.
Hmm.
But then too, it has some incredible like sense of scale. Like one of the first things you do is you hop off of this height, that you kind of, if you read the codexes, it's that it's essentially like titans are carrying a fortress on top of them, which have the priests in it. And so you just kill the priest, you hop off, and you kind of look up and you see one just in like, just looming over you. And it's like the sense of scale that I'm an absolute sucker for. And I know you tuned in a little bit, Nick, and I don't know if you
Hmm.
heard me say it, but I think that there was a, in the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era, I think people or developers, not people, they don't count. They created this. They were pursuing this kind of sense of scale because they're like, we have this power now. Like we have so much power in our hands. So
Hmm.
like you had games where you're walking and there's gigantic boss fights. There's like vistas where things are getting wrecked. And I think in the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One generation, and then obviously now with the PS5 and Xbox Series XS, the shift has gone to realism to a degree that where you're losing some of that fantasticalness. I'm not saying it's completely gone. Obviously, Final Fantasy 16 is a game that exists, so
Hmm.
I can't say it's completely devoid in the industry. But I really love the fact that Doom Eternal does that, where it's not just in that opening area. There's several parts where like the doors open and you'll see like what was once an epic battle between two giants, and
Hmm.
you're walking on their armor and you're like going through their guts and innards and stuff, and it's a really cool setup. So man, I've always liked Doom, but I have now a Doom head. Is that what they call them? I don't know what the Doom fans call themselves, but yeah, very much
Doomers.
so in love with this. Doomers, yeah. I think that's just what you call someone reading the news every day. But yeah, that's my Doom rant for today. My full, better worded review will be up on respawnstation.com, which yeah, that'll come out at a later date.
As somebody that's played the modern Doom games and also the older Doom games, it brings me a lot of joy to hear that you actually liked it, because it's I think there is like a good amount of like wide appeal for Doom, but it is also these modern ones. They are also games that do ask a lot of the player. Like if you were geared towards a specific type of game, let's say like a Call of Duty or a Battlefield, and you go into Doom, it's like trading like a bicycle for a skateboard. Like you have to completely rewire how you think about how shooting a gun and moving around a space works. Even more so in Doom Eternal, I feel like it feels like if you are not constantly moving in that game, you are like, you're causing problems for yourself essentially.
Yeah.
So
and
yeah,
they sort of reinvent the wheel, and it's again, I'm curious to see how it progresses, because obviously in Doom 2016, it very much so is a progression. Like there are changes to the way the Doom guy moves and functions as he plays with more abilities and stuff. In Eternal, they're already like, oh, now he's swing on poles and like wall climbing, which by the way, the I don't know why, but the idea of Doom guy just fucking scampering up the fucking walls is hilarious to me, because he's zooming on that stuff. But yeah, I'm curious to see how it evolves in Eternal, because it really does feel like they're like, and what I appreciate so far, and I think it speaks true to what we've seen of the Dark Ages already, is that it really does feel like they've not grown complacent, right? Like it has created a perfect formula in Doom 2016 where they could easily code it again with a new coat of paint, and then hey, here's Doom 2, Doomed, Doomer, I don't know, whatever you want to call the sequel, that hypothetical sequel. But they really went back and they're like, okay, how do we approach it in a different way? It's still Doom, but it's kind of tackled from a different perspective. And with the Dark Ages, what was their slogan? It's
stand and fight.
Stand and fight. Yeah. So again, totally different, because Eternal, you can't stop moving, and in the Dark Ages, they're like, yeah, fucking take a breath, and just let the ammo, let the enemies come to you, and you can counter and block and all that stuff.
Yeah,
I respect that.
It's been a while since I've played Eternal. I never got around to the Ancient Gods, which I've heard is also really good, but it also, from what I heard, is like, Doom Eternal on crack already. So it's like, there are some parts, I'll be curious to hear, Sri, that I remember in the late game giving me some struggles. So I'll be curious to see how you think that the difficulty ebbs and flows as you play that one. But yeah, as you mentioned,
and there's character customization where like how you make the Doomslayer look actually reflects in the cutscenes, which was weird.
Yeah, the one thing I did have to hop on to see was your reaction to the very opening of the game, because it's such a mood setter when you just hear that like and then they just pull up the shotgun shells. You see Bethesda Productions. It's just like it's so good,
so badass, dude. And obviously it's so unfortunate, like playing it with the context of what happened with Mick Gordon and everything, because it's so unfortunate, because what Mick has done with the Doom soundtracks is incredible. I mean, it so immediately sets the tone. There's a certain ferocity to it that like just gets you going, and it matches the pace of gameplay so well. And I also like, getting technical with it. I love the way that fuck, dude, we're gonna talk about this fucking game all whole podcast. But when you get into these encounters, right, it's typical Doom boomer shooter method where, oh, you're in the area, demonic presence has gone up, you have to kill all demons or the doors won't unlock.
Mhm.
And the music is edited dynamically with the gameplay. So as you play, however long you take to clear that room, the music can just keep going. And then as soon as you kill the last demon, it'll almost like cut it off, put a little stinger at the end, and then it'll go back to regular music. It's really well done in
Mhm.
terms of like crafting it to your experience.
There's also some not yeah, like you said, not to keep harping on Doom here, but you mentioned with 2016 how it like sets up the personality of the Doomslayer and everything. There are some really good character moments in Eternal that I can't wait to see.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
There's because like, you know, I when I think of 2016, I mean, it's been a while since I've played that one, but when I think of 2016, I do think of the I'm going to slap the monitor aside kind of thing, and that's like one of the main ones that comes to mind with that. With Eternal, there's like two or three that stick in my head from that game, so yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, well, you can tune in live, everybody, to hear what I think about Doom Eternal as I continue chipping away at it over the next few weeks.
Yeah, so do you want to talk about some news here? I can give you a little bit of a break, seeing as you had a lot to say about Doom, which is
Yes,
good.
yeah, let's get to the news.
So yeah, basically, I had planned a couple of different news topics for our lost episode, as we're going to dub it now, due to the power
Yes.
outage. So we might kind of weave some of those in. Some of them had an update, like, you know, we were going to talk about Borderlands 4 getting a state of play. That state of play has already happened, so we can just talk about some Borderlands 4. So let's just start there, I guess.
Sure.
Did you end up watching this 3?
I did. It was a
Gotcha.
20-minute gameplay preview. Like, it was the first time they really gave you some gameplay and let you kind of sit on it. So, yeah, what'd you think?
Yeah, it's interesting is the word that I'll say. Because Borderlands 3, I, after playing it, was not the biggest fan of. And I get the sense that Gearbox understands that Borderlands 3 didn't hit the highs that something like Borderlands 2 did. Because there's a couple moments throughout the state of play where they're like, you know, in Borderlands 3, we tried this one thing, but we realized it's not that great. So we're doing it different this time. So I think that is a good sign that they have that kind of ear to the ground with their community on certain things. So, for instance, you know, I personally don't really recollect, you know, all of the details specifically, but with Borderlands 3, I guess the spawn rate of legendary gear was apparently a lot higher than other games, and it kind of devalued that sense of, like, you know, reward essentially when you would find one of those items. So apparently legendaries in 4 are going to be, you know, harder to obtain. But like, just pocketing that off, the kind of takeaway that I got from the state of play for somebody like me that's played pretty much all of the Borderlands games and is looking at this new one, it seems like there's a lot of quality of life improvements that they're making to the general gameplay formula. And tonally, it seems like it's going in a bit of a different direction from 3, but not too much of a departure to where it's like unrecognizable or anything like that.
My perspective on Borderlands is obviously complete opposite of Nick. I've not played to completion none of them. I've played like a few hours here and a few hours there, but for me, I thought the showcase was fine, but like it didn't sell me on Borderlands. You know, like I wasn't super intrigued at actually diving in myself. I do appreciate what they did show, and you know how they're, you know, kind of giving you an idea of, hey, here's the gameplay. You can kind of listen to the sounds of the game. There's not just a narrator talking or, you know, like fake voiceover going, "Whoa, did you see that over there? No, let's go check that out." You know, it's not like that kind of pre-scripted dialogue or whatever. But yeah, there's just ultimately not enough here that really drew me in to want to, you know, like I'm not anticipating this game in its current
Yeah,
state.
I'm kind of the same way. Like, as a fan, there wasn't anything here that I'm like, oh, like this completely changes the game. Like I have to see what Borderlands 4 is doing here. I think what's kind of funny what you brought up, it's like a double-edged sword the way that they presented the gameplay, because it's like they're showing, primarily like, long chunks of unedited gameplay, and it's like, nice, that's what we want to see. But that also has the monkey's paw of like including the boring bits where it's just like, okay, we're floating to this location 200 meters away for 30 seconds and stuff like that. So there are some elements to it where it's like, maybe not the snappiest, but then they get to highlight like you can spawn your own kind of vehicles wherever you want, which is like, that's pretty nice, because you would have to go to a vehicle spawn station in prior games. If you're playing in co-op, you can fast travel directly to your teammate. That's like a huge thing, because you could get completely separated in these giant environments off doing completely different side quests. So having like an easy way to be able to regroup with your partners is it's huge. I did notice a lot of people online talking about some slight redesigns to the characters, which they kind of got like a little bit of flack when they originally unveiled them as being like a bit too like generic, even by Borderlands standards. So I did see some people talking about that. I wasn't personally paying close enough attention to be like, oh yeah, those are different. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it seems like the tone, maybe they're trying to get back to a little bit more of the Borderlands 2. It seems like they're trying to add more movement-specific abilities and control to just kind of make it like a more flowing FPS of like, modern, up to modern standards, essentially. And doing just like a bunch of different like tweaks to try to make the overall experience a bit more tight and a bit more focused. So on paper, they're doing a lot of things that I'm interested in, but it's kind of like you said, it's just like I think we're missing that radical thing that
For
the game
first
needs.
glance, do you think that it looks like a Borderlands game, or is it just off enough where what I mean, like? From my perspective, the reason why I ask is it doesn't quite like it's vibrant, sure, I'll give it that, but I don't know, it doesn't quite look like how I know Borderlands looks, and I think it's probably a combination of updated hardware and also the Unreal Engine 4, I think, is what it's being developed in. So stuff like that, I think, is why.
Sure,
I feel that way, but as you as a more experienced Borderlands,
I can totally
player.
see that. It's to me, it has enough DNA of the modern Borderlands games where I'm like, yeah, that still looks like Borderlands. But if your point of comparison would be like 1 or 2, I definitely think some of that cel-shaded comic aesthetic has been pulled back a bit in favor of visual fidelity. So yeah, I could definitely see that being a perspective to have on that. It's I guess I would say it's more so in like the UI and everything, where I'm like, yeah, this is Borderlands. Like they open up that skill tree and it's like, yeah, this looks exactly like this. This like, looking at stats and breakdowns of all this stuff. That was one other thing that they brought up that I was like, I'm not sure if I love, which is how they were talking about, like, we have all the guns, we have all the different manufacturers. Obviously, that's all, like, carried through from the very beginning. But then they're like, now weapons can spawn with attachments from multiple different manufacturers, and all of those manufacturers' specific abilities can be tied to these attachments. And I was just sitting here listening to them describe it, and I'm like, are we getting a little bit too much now to the point where it's just like, yes, there's like 15 quintillion guns, but it's like, okay, so my pistol, it can shoot acid bullets. When I reload, it does the John Wick flick and like 50 grenades spawn out of it. And then I switch to my other weapon and the gun teleports behind the enemy and starts shooting at him in the ass. And it's like, it feels like maybe there's a little bit too much variation in this. And I don't know, like a big part of these games is always, finding your random loot that like clicks with you, and it's like, this is what I'm going to be using and everything. So maybe it's just me being a weird negative Nancy and not like, worrying too much about it. But
Interesting that you went with the name Nancy, considering your name is Nick.
sure, a negative Nick. But yeah, it was just something in the moment where I was listening to it and I was like, man, this just seems like so many permutations and stuff. It's like, I don't even know how you balance it, or even if you do balance it, it's just like you get your god tier roll and then it's just like, yeah, I can just curb stomp whatever I want now.
Nick, what are the odds that we'll have a Hawk Tua joke in there? Some mention of the Rizzler, a wanted quest.
If this was Borderlands 3, the percentage would be higher.
Oh, okay. Is there more confidence in this than Borderlands 3?
Yeah, I think that the kind of different tone that they're seemingly taking with it, I'm not going to say it's less than 50%, certainly, but I think maybe if there's one thing that I think there's potential to be surprised by, I would say it's possibly the tone and the story that they're going to tell with this one. Because, there is, jokes in the gameplay, right? But at least as far as, from what I recall from Borderlands 3, it was every single dialogue was a setup for some kind of corny joke and stuff. And I didn't get that sensation from the gameplay. So... Mm-hmm. I don't know, but if you want me to put a stamp on it, I'd say it's probably 75 to 80% chance that there's a Hawk Tua in there at least. So gun Tua,
yeah, in some form, yeah, exactly. Is it like a gun that could be there, a dialogue, a quest line, whatever it is, an offline or a throwaway kind of interaction between NPCs, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot there. All right, now look, there's quite a lot going on in the gaming world. There's obviously this short little indie game called, actually, I say that as a joke, but it actually is an indie game. It's just not short. Called Clair Obscure Expedition 33 that just recently came out. Surprised everyone by not only becoming the highest rated game on Metacritic of the year, but also as of earlier today, I believe, right? They officially announced that in 12 days, they've sold 2 million copies,
which is great
awesome
news. Everybody thought Oblivion was gonna steamroll it, and seemingly it's
even we kind of gave them a shout out, like, hey, they're coming out. But yeah, I'm really happy for it. It's awesome to see kind of a new IP, new indie developer kind of just really take it away and run with it. But here's the thing, Nick, I don't know what's going on this week in the gaming world, but I feel like we need to have an intervention here. All right, folks, it is early May as of when we are recording this episode. Okay, and I don't understand, with Summer Game Fest being 1 month away. All right, they're just on a Monday being like, oh, by the way, Gears of War is coming to PlayStation. What? Take it to the stage, Xbox. Let me see it on the big screen and be like, that's incredible. Not just opening up Twitter and being like, Gears of War, PS5. What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, Gears of War Reloaded. This is essentially from. You can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I was doing a little bit of digging. This is just the ultimate edition of the first game, right? This isn't a trilogy or anything that's coming out. Okay.
It is not the trilogy, and it is also not the Ultimate Edition. It's a remaster of the first Gears of War, so it's a full-on ground-up remake, remaster, I should say. I don't understand why this exists when the Ultimate Edition already exists, but I think Xbox also kind of has tapped into that, because if you have the Ultimate Edition, at least digitally on Xbox, you can own it. You can get the new version for free, I believe.
Yeah, I saw that.
But yeah, I'm not. Oh, I see it right there. Yeah. But I'm not sure why. It's so weird. I'm guessing they're kind of testing the water because this is not a full price release. I'll actually go right to the Xbox Wire article that they posted about this. So The key points are the original Gears of War returns, faithfully remastered. So it's not a ground up remake, like I was saying. It's a remastered, faithfully remastered, and natively optimized for more platforms than ever before. And it's called Gears of War Reloaded, which launches on August 26th, 2025, for a price of $40. Is that the price, or no? Was Oblivion $50?
Yeah, Oblivion's
Oblivion
50.
was okay. Yeah. So this is coming to Xbox Series XS, Xbox Cloud Gaming, PlayStation 5, Steam. Arrives day one on Game Pass and PC, or on PC Game Pass and Game Pass Ultimate. But here's a weird thing: they say Xbox PC. Is that just because it's not coming to Steam? Or no, it says Steam. So I don't know why it says Xbox PC.
I think
in there, but
Windows
yeah,
Store is probably what that is, unless they've like rebranded that, because they usually separate that from Steam.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy, though, that it is coming to PlayStation. I think I was having this conversation with a friend of mine who he was just like, I can't believe it's just the first game. He was like, I've been wanting to replay these games, and it's just like, why is it the first one? The only thing that I can think of is that they just want to kind of piecemeal it out and have more opportunities to be like, guess what? Now Gears of War 2 is coming to PlayStation. Gears of War 3 is coming to PlayStation. Like,
Gears of War Judgment is coming to PlayStation.
Everybody's like, boo. I kind of like that game. It's whatever. But yeah, that's the only thing I can think of where it's just like, okay, like, you know, Gears is coming to PlayStation now, and now at the summer showcase we can have like a Gears of War 2 or something like that, or Gears Tactics 2 get announced, and it's like, you know, this one's also coming to PlayStation. That's the only really thing I can think of. I mean, like we say, like, we don't typically cover like leaks and things like that on here, but there was some rumors going around a while back that Halo Master Chief Collection was going to be coming to PlayStation. And since then, new rumors have circulated to where it's not going to be the whole collection at once. It's also going to be like one game at the start. And so maybe this is just like their way to like stretch out their product or something. Maybe they really do just want it in the conversation longer. And if you drop an entire collection at once, like, it has its moment, and then it's whatever's new. So that's the only real thing that I can think of for it. I mean, it's cool that PlayStation players are going to be able to play Gears of War now, and I guess PC. I'm sure that has to be on PC already in some way.
I think Ultimate Edition is on at least like Windows or Marketplace Store or whatever it was that you're saying. Just to hit on what you were asking earlier, so it's Gears of War Reloaded includes the full breadth of content from the Gears of War Ultimate Edition, delivering the most complete version of the game to date. Players will gain immediate access to post-launch downloadable content at no additional cost. Obviously, includes bonus campaign act, all multiplayer maps and modes, and a full roster of classic characters, cosmetics unlockable through progression. So, first of all, the fact that it's got multiplayer is awesome. Crazy. I'm really curious to see if the multiplayer hits again. With this game. Maybe, again, where we're just kind of spitballing here because we really don't know what Xbox's strategy is regarding only releasing one of the three games, especially after already having a remastered version of this particular title out already. Obviously now it plays, in 4K with 60 FPS in campaign and 120 FPS in multiplayer apparently, but which is crazy. But I think it could also be the fact of, if you release three games at once, where does the multiplayer crowd go to? Like, does everyone just go to Gears of War 3, or everyone goes to, because it's the latest one, or everyone goes to Gears of War 1 because the original, or I know Gears of War 2 is kind of the favorite of like, oh, this is the best. And so kind of, where are you going to go? I think that's probably another function of this whole kind of bringing a beloved, essentially system mascot over to a rival system.
If to touch on that, if anybody had any doubt that anything else is coming from Xbox, I mean, I think you already have, people Forza would always say exactly Forza, Gears, Halo was Xbox, and we already got two of those. So that Halo is definitely around the corner, I would suggest. or I would
Yeah,
expect.
and I think it's also sort of now up in the air for if Fable, Playground Games,
Sure.
the team behind Forza Horizon is making the new Fable game, and I think it's at this point we don't know if it's not out of the picture that Fable will come to the PlayStation 5 as well.
Hmm.
Maybe not day and date, but maybe like a 3-4 month gap or 6 month gap that we've seen kind of recently. So very very interesting. I'm looking forward. Here's my thing, right? Here's my Fane boy gamer nerd moment of the episode, right? Sponsored by FanDuel. Um, it's I think if this is something that they're just announcing on a random ass Monday, I think that Xbox has a tight show planned for next month because they have to if they're cutting this if they're leaving this on the the cutting room floor, there has to be some absolutely just incredible announcements, and if I expect nothing less from the Xbox, okay, especially after the recent announcement that they are increasing prices across the globe for everything that they're putting out. This is came as a, I guess, a surprise to some, but also with the current state of tariffs and all that, it's also not completely surprising. But following Nintendo's reveal that hey, certain first party titles will be $80, with starting with Mario World. Xbox is following suit by saying, "Hey, some of our first-party games will also be $80." And they also announced that the Xbox Series X will be going up $100. The Xbox Series S will be going up almost $100 to $80. So from 300 to 380, and all their accessories will go up in price. And by this holiday, yeah, the $80 price tag will hit some of the bigger announcements. Which again, I think we'll start. They announce it now because probably the games that are going to be revealed in the at the Summer Game Fest or whatever it's called, the
Hmm.
Xbox Game Showcase, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
That's when we'll see those games that will be costing $80. And
Yeah.
yeah, Nick, what's your take on this?
Unsurprising, like you said. Disappointing, as everybody else is saying. Um, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the state that everything is in right now. No longer getting a discount. The one thing I do think is interesting to note in their language is, in the rebuttal of the price increase or whatever, suggesting that it was due to economic conditions and rising costs of development. While that is
Yeah,
true, that also reads to me, it's like, okay, well, if the tariffs go away, like, don't expect the game prices to go back down because we're just going to say, hey,
right.
games are expensive to make, so $80 is staying, that's staying.
Yeah,
So just a convenient little bit of corporate speak there to, say, like, hey, get used to it. We're not going back. The other thing that I
yeah.
find interesting is that you know Sony's been inching up a little bit here and there and stuff, but they've been real quiet since Nintendo and Xbox are now at $80. So it's only a matter of time before they're just like, us too. Like,
Yeah, and I've written out this long opinion piece the day after this announcement happened because there was a lot going on in my head of what and initially I'll share this a little bit of kind of perspective on this, right? So first of all, this article was huge. I mean, this one article brought in the same amount of readers as our site had entirety of last month, which was a crazy
wow,
perspective.
nice.
Yeah. And so I appreciate all the kind of dialogue and all that regarding the article. Um, it was shared on Reddit, and we had I think it was like 800 comments, and I had to turn off my notifications so that I wouldn't have to engage with this. And there's quite a few people who are like, "Why does this have Starfield as the photo?" And truth be told, all right, let me answer it honestly. It has Starfield because two reasons. One, that whole piece started and ended up being a kind of generally about the idea that gamers are paying more money for less stuff. Um, but it started out as a critique of Microsoft specifically, and so that's one reason, and two, because I think the fucking Starfield wallpaper looks sick as hell. It's a great backdrop. All right. Obviously, people were very offended by this and thought I was, hating Starfield. So I did change the image. It is now Mario Kart World. So it is an $80 game. All right, we can move off of that topic now. But for me, the reason why I started off as a Microsoft critique is specifically because I don't understand what the reasoning behind some of this stuff. Obviously, more money. Yes, the red line has to go up. That's at the end of the day, that's what business is in this regard. But and Nick, I'm curious to have your perspective on it as well, because obviously me writing this article, I got your feedback on it, but it was a one-sided thing. For me, I don't understand why Microsoft would, especially in the month that they've just had, be increasing all their prices across the board and making people question who an Xbox is for, because this comes off of the back of them really leaning into the anything is an Xbox, like you're watching this on an Xbox, like that's a whole big thing. And then that along with the fact that PlayStation releases of Xbox originals like Forza Horizon or Indiana Jones of the Great Circle are selling incredibly well. I mean, both of those games were at the top of the PlayStation Store pre-order list, and then when they came out, they were at the top of the sales list. So with that happening, them essentially becoming an incredible publisher with their with already a huge roster of games, they're essentially saying like, why would you buy an Xbox? Like, why would you buy an Xbox Series X, which costs $600, by the way? And fun fact, I actually just had to, for reasons we're not going to get into, I just had to buy trade in my old PS5, and I got a new one. I got a PS5 Slim, and $500. Okay, and if you want a PS5, it's $500 for a PS5 and a copy of Astrobot as well, which is a crazy deal. But why would you spend $600 on an Xbox Series X or even $380 on an Xbox Series S when you could just buy a PS5 or a PC and know that those games will be like any game that you would be looking forward to, you can get. And if you're like, oh well, what about Xbox Game Pass? Well, you just get a PC, right? A PC, you can get Xbox Game Pass for a PC, I believe. I haven't checked it, but I'm sure someone would fact check me. But I'm pretty sure PC Game Pass is cheaper than Game Pass Ultimate, which is what you need on the console to play games day and date. Like Doom: The Dark Ages and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm just confused at this, and one point that I was kind of, when I was looking at prices, I was really surprised by, is that there's a 2 terabyte version of the Xbox Series X. So it's the same version, same Xbox. There's no upgrades other than just having more storage. That costs more than the PlayStation 5 Pro, which also has 2 terabytes.
Yeah, it is confusing. I think this is
$80, by the way. Let me just to put a pin on it. $80 at this point, I get it. Like, game price go up. I get it. $80 is an understandable thing. It's just that everything else regarding the pricing of the systems is what's confusing to me.
I think it's giving. My opinion is that this is gonna give Xbox a lot of credit in their reading of their own position in the industry. In that, I think when it comes to the price increases outside of, tariffs or whatever, I think what their read on the situation is, and this is something that I think they've come out and openly said, maybe this has just been conjecture by people, but I'm pretty sure that it was either Phil Spencer or somebody that said, like, there are some people on other platforms like PlayStation that we're just not going to convert. Like, no matter what, like, we're not going to get, the God of War, Gran Turismo player to suddenly fork over the cash for an Xbox, right? So if that is a sentiment that they do see, and they've, expressed in court cases that, we're the underdog, we're in the third
We're the
place
underdog, yeah.
position here. If it is them just reading their own position and being like, okay, it's really not going to matter in the grand scheme of things whether we charge $500 or if we charge $2,000 for this Xbox, like it's not going to change that much. That would be kind of that's like the headspace that I think they're at right now, where it's just like, it doesn't matter what the price tag says on the Xbox, because, if we're getting a sale on PlayStation, we're getting a sale on Steam, we're getting a sale through cloud gaming on Samsung TVs, it's like, it doesn't really matter.
Yep.
Like at that point. So ultimately, like, while it's crappy news and they obviously have to brace for that and try to save face with people, like, I honestly just don't even think it really registers as much of an issue to them. It's just like, yeah,
sure,
I mean, we have to raise prices. We understand you don't like that. We don't love it either, outside of, the money that we're getting. But it's just like, at the same time, again, it's like, who's been really sitting on, maybe I should get the Series X right now, and then they're just like, oh dang it, they raised the prices on it. And it's like I mentioned about Sony, like, yeah, you can get the PS5 for $500 now, but like, is that going to be the same in 3 months' time? Like,
yeah, and that's exactly why I decided to just get my PS5 Slim now, because I was just reading the tea leaves, and again, I was very self-aware of this. I knew that as I was writing this article, and I wasn't really I wasn't giving PlayStation in any way the benefit of the doubt, right? Like I very much so think that somewhere, on the PlayStation or Sony servers, there is an email being thrown around of like, do you think the wording is right for this announcement that we're increasing prices? Like that is very much so, I think, and likely happening right now. But I don't know, with the way that Xbox is currently positioned, it just feels a little bit odd for me. But oh well, we'll have to see how this goes. Obviously, next month we'll have some big announcements and stuff coming, and so we'll get a closer look at what these big budget AAA first party games will be, and you can obviously stay tuned to the Respawn Station podcast to hear what Nick and I think about those games once they're announced. Now, Nick, the last game, the kind of big news that we want to tackle for at least this episode, before we get into the main topic, which is just no real big deal. It's just going to glaze over it. There's nothing really to talk about. But Elden Ring, Night Rain, they had a new overview trailer where they showed off some gameplay, walked you through a little bit more of the, I think, character setups and stuff like that. So what we got? I mean, it's launching at the end of this month.
Yeah.
What do you think about Night Rain?
Yeah, this is kind of a weird trailer. Like this, I'm never gonna say no to getting like a nice extensive kind of gameplay trailer for a game that I'm excited for, right? But this kind of echoed the same sentiment that I had with that Mario Kart World Nintendo Direct that we talked about a couple episodes ago, where it's like, this just kind of feels like a extended version of trailers we've already seen, really, for it. It kind of walks through like how the game flow works, where you drop into a level, you go and fight enemies or attack different, points of interest to try to get upgrades to fight a boss. We do get to see some footage of like new bosses and some new kind of terrain changes that can happen based off of the that are different from the alpha gameplay that people were streaming and all that like a couple months ago.
Right.
And yeah, it's cool, but it doesn't really inspire a whole lot of confidence that what you'll be doing will be radically different every time you play. So
sure.
Whereas some games, it's just like every run feels dramatically different because like the skybox is going to be different, you're in a completely different region of the world. It still kind of has that, like, there is a main hub and elements of it are going to change, but it's not going to be like maybe a dramatic, roguelike experience where, entire regions are being shifted up every time you play.
Right.
Some of the other kind of like unique to this gameplay demonstration elements that they shared. There is going to be like different outfits that you can customize your characters with, some of them including kind of like what we've seen in the gameplay, some classic fan favorite outfits. They had a Solaire from Dark Souls 1 outfit, and they also had the like knight from the key art of Dark Souls 2, which is cool, with like the green skirt and, you know, feathered kind of cowl and everything. So cool. I mean, it's, you know, member berries, kind of stuff like that, but it from traditionally hasn't really delved into that too much. So like I give them a pass, honestly, for one game to do it. The other thing that was kind of intriguing is they talked about kind of the narrative element of the game, which is at the round table hold, which is kind of like your hub area in Elden Ring. There'll be these other characters that you can interact with and talk with. And eventually, through doing specific objectives in runs, it'll give you different, I'm not sure if it was specifically win conditions, or it'll unlock like new lore and conversations to have at the round table hold. And eventually you'll be able to uncover why these characters, like sort of like elements of their backstory, why they're here at the round table hold at this specific time, and other things like that. So I think it's intriguing. Like I said, it kind of reminds me almost of little bits and pieces of what Hades was doing, where after every run your conversations can, you know, evolve over time. The thing that I'm most curious about is specifically unlocking those new objectives and like what those are kind of like, because the gameplay isn't exactly clear. It's like it shows your character walking up to like a combat encounter and fighting some enemies. So it'll be interesting to see if it'll be like reach this really difficult spot and like find an item, or if they're all just kind of like combat encounters and different variations on that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
are you planning on picking this up on May 30th when it comes out?
I want to.
It is a budget title. You know, it is $40 in the time when, you know, $80 games are the norm.
It's really tough for me, Sri, because what I didn't mention previously when we were just talking about it, but because of all of the positive word of mouth and everything, I do really want to play Clair Obscur, and that was not a game that I was planning on buying this year. But everybody's talking about how it's like, yeah, this is like GOTY material, like this is incredible, and so it's like I really kind of want to experience what it is. At the same time, it's sort of like what we experienced with Warhammer. The physical copies have been sold out since the game came out, essentially. And I even Googled it the other day. I was like, have they made like any kind of comment on this? Because it just seems like it's sold out everywhere. And I guess they did apologize and say they're working to, you know, get them restocked as soon as possible. But it's like, Clair Obscur's out. I want to try that. Oblivion. I'd like to get that and play. I'm fine waiting for a physical on that as well, if that is coming down the road. Doom the Dark Ages is like days, if not the same day, as Elden Ring Night Rain. And
no. Doom is mid-month.
Mid-month, okay, like 10 so days. There's at least a little bit of time in between those, but it's like exactly what I mentioned a couple weeks ago, where this is like giving me 2023 flashbacks, where it was every single month there was like three things that I wanted to play, and so
100%.
I want to play it. Like I do want to get it and play it. It's like I'm also just starting Indiana Jones now, so it's just like there's so much stuff.
That's and the thing.
I don't. Money currently isn't exactly the limiting factor, because like you said, half these games are like budget titles, which is like nice that you don't have to drop $70 to $80 getting there on each of these games. But it's really more so a time issue, where it's like I don't know how I would be able to fit all this stuff in.
That's fair. I've committed to playing the game, so I will be picking it up. So my goal is to get through Eternal, and then we'll see if I can get the Dark Ages in there as well before everything kind of. Again, it really is like a 1-2 punch, just constant stuff, and the way that the infamous backlog shifts is very dynamic. And so, as you're saying, obviously. With Clair Obscur, I think hearing the positive word of mouth for that game has really shot it up in, how soon I want to check it out. But at the same time, I'm not quite sure if it'll be like right away.
Mm.
Um, it really has to like, be in the right mood, the right time. Like Sea of Stars was like a turn-based game that I kind of picked up on a whim and was really swept away by that game. No pun intended. But regarding this Clair Obscur Expedition 33, it's been a very, very hot topic because obviously there's all these rave reviews, people just absolutely praising the game for almost every aspect from the storytelling to the gameplay. And I think a lot of people were fairly confident that it would be at the very least nominated for a Game of the Year. But whether it would win or not was dependent on one other game, one other release that was slated for this year. And that game is officially not coming out this year. We'll talk about that right after this. This episode of the Respawn Station podcast is brought to you by RespawnStation.com. Check out our website to not only support independent games media, but also hear our well-worded thoughts on the games we've been playing and the ones we're looking forward to. Head on over to our website now to check out our opinion piece on the $80 era, how gamers are paying more for less, and an interview with the developers of Date Everything, the upcoming sandbox dating sim. With that said, back to the show.
We are back at it, and whoo, big day, big day.
Big week. And, it's weird because we've obviously, we had a week off. And in that week, when we were preparing for the last episode, the lost episode, we were like, oh, there's no real kind of big headline news. So let's just kind of, come up with our own topic. And since then, Rockstar has dropped not just one big bomb, but two. One last week at the end of last week, and one obviously earlier today.
Yeah.
So first, I guess let's take it back to last week and talk about the delay.
Yeah. GTA 6, they had a, JPEG image ready to go announcing that it is being delayed, but within that delay, they did announce a specific date, which is progress. So previously, It was just fall 2025 for GTA 6. Now they are saying that GTA 6 is coming out May 26th, 2026. And yeah, who knows if that's going to stick because Rockstar does not have a great track record in this regard. Yeah. Everybody is basing it off of the last game, Red Dead Redemption 2, which had 2 delays. So currently we're following a similar trajectory. So I would not be surprised if that does not stick to May as well. But
I'll say my first reaction, I saw the post come up on my feed, and I'm reading it as straight, and as soon as my eyes hit May 26th, I was like, "Oh, what the fuck? It comes out this month," and then I had to continue. I'm like, oh, 2026. Oh, that makes so much sense.
A full year away from now.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, man, this was obviously both you and I assume are in agreement on if a game needs a delay, it's important that the game takes the delay and comes out on time, or it comes out, with and minimal
that's specifically
issues.
Cited that this delay was so that they could avoid kind of crunch and kind of an unhealthy work space in order to kind of get the game out in time, which again
is something that Rockstar specifically has struggled with in the past and has been the focus of multiple kind of, issues, both I think legal and not, just social,
just general,
social impression or whatever those words are that I'm trying to say. But as a fan reading that news, man, it was such a gut punch to read that and be like, man, like we were so close. Strauss, I was listening to Strauss and he was saying that they're so confident that it's coming. He was using that silver tongue and just being like, man, whenever they hit those next, trailers and everything, we're going to be so close. And then to be like, it's a full year away still. It's just like, man, it's so bad. But on the flip side, we did get today trailer number 2, finally, over a year after the first trailer launched. We have trailer 2. And I think this was a very deliberate decision to give us this gut punch a couple days ago, because I think the conversation today would be very different if we got trailer 2 and at the end everybody found out that it's a year away now.
2026,
it would be like such a stinker cherry at the end there. Everybody would just be, that would be what the conversation would be, is that like, it looks good, but it's coming so much later now. I think giving us a couple days to acclimate to that bad news and then just be like, okay, here's your new trailer. I think that was the smart way.
It was a very smart marketing move. Yeah. And, now that people are like, okay, those days of my vacation that I was saving for this inevitable GTA 6 release, I can now move it to next year or, use up whatever I need. So, it was a very clever kind of planned move of, it was like, punching you initially and then letting you recover and then giving you like a
birthday cake.
Yeah. It's very effective. So here it is, right? We have, out of nowhere, this morning I get a text from Nick. I think it just said like, what the fuck or something.
Mine was with a link to the trailer.
All right, mine was what the fuck. And yeah, it was, I had no idea this was happening, and then here I was, just like stunned, like watching this thing on my phone. And then since then, I've watched it like on my computer, and then I've watched it on my TV. Like I've re-experienced it a few times in different methods. And this is, I don't think it's really a comparison of who the biggest developer in the world is, right? Like, I think it's Rockstar. I think they are at the top of the pyramid, not just because they make good games, but because the level of excitement and the level of conversation, right? Just purely conversation that is generated from any single thing that has to do with Grand Theft Auto or really any Rockstar project, is so high. And I've really witnessed that today, because it felt like I could not escape GTA 6 if I tried. Not that I was trying to, but it was like everywhere I looked, it was, someone sharing the GTA 6 trailer, or, it's like they also apparently released like a bunch, like dozens of screenshots on their website. I think they even were like sending certain exclusive images to like fan pages and stuff like that were like, big community pages. So that they had a little bit of a scoop themselves, which was cool. And that, then not even taking into account the a ludicrous amount of thirst traps I've seen for Lucia, right? I believe that's the one of the two protagonists in the game, Jason and Lucia. And look, I get it. There's several shots in the trailer that are exclusively of her ass. So I understand.
Let's be fair though, of Jason's as well. And that's something that I really enjoyed about the trailer, is that there is this kind of it's at the top of my mind because I left a comment on one of these reactions that I was watching, and somebody replied to me and was like, what about all the sex stuff though? That's like, am I supposed to be excited by that? And I was like, well, like, to each their own, but their relationship is going to be a huge narrative focus of this game. And to be fair, like, at least in my opinion, it's not something that's ever really been deeply or like more interestingly explored in these games. It's been very surface level. It's like, oh, the strip club, hot coffee, San Andreas. Like, that's kind of the extent that this has. And like, I feel like this is very intentional that they are putting this in this trailer with such a focus and being like, yes, they are a couple, they're gonna have sex, but it's like, I feel like there's probably more to this than it's just, two people having sex and sex sells, right?
Yeah.
So
I agree. I think this is very much so. I mean, the obvious comparison, I'm not the first person to make it, but it's like the Bonnie and Clyde sort of dynamic of these two, lover criminals, trying to make it big, or, make a name for themselves, whatever you want to say. I do agree that I think that the story, like, I personally don't think that it was just like, hey, like, let's have gratuitous, just ass shots and like just sexualization for the sake of it. I think it is more of the intimacy between these two characters of, you're in their perspective, you're in their world, in terms of like that's Vice City. That is the city that Vice City is emulating, or which I think is pretty obvious. So I don't think it needs to be stated in case you don't know. I think it's part of the narrative, and so it does feel intentional, not just gratuitous. But that being said, it is. I mean, some people are clearly here for just that. Right. So I think there's definitely, you can't escape one without the other. That being said, for just what are your thoughts just watching this thing? And I know you've also been re-experiencing the trailer a few times.
A few, yeah. Man, this is, how do I want to tackle this? As a person that is a video editor, and specifically that I've dabbled in trailer editing and like I have interest in that. I mean, hell, like I've spent a good portion of my life watching game trailers for a lot of my time on this earth, and there is a swagger and a confidence that Rockstar game trailers have that very few other trailers, I feel, encapsulate. And it's not even just like this like modern kind of GTA kind of thing. The Red Dead Redemption 2 trailers are very different stylistic trailers, but also have that same gravitas and kind of larger than life nature at this point. And so watching this trailer, like the song choices, the edits themselves, the sound effects that they use, like it has this thing where it's just like, and it's gonna, maybe this isn't the exact, comparison that I want to draw here, but it's like, yeah, we're gonna charge 100 and you're fucking gonna buy it. Like that's the vibe that it gets. But it's like, you're also gonna be super hyped about it because no other game looks like this. No other company gets remotely close to the resources and the talent that we have here. And it's like, to be fair, like there is still some question marks for GTA. We did have a lot of like former Rockstar heads leave during this project, and so it's like that could have some impacts on things like the storytelling and decisions like that. But like you watch this trailer and it's like, the visual fidelity is bonkers, like
top notch. Yep.
I thought the first trailer looked good. A lot of people did, obviously. But like the first like two opening shots, it's just like, what am I looking at? Like this looks insane.
Yeah.
I, upon a couple of reactions that I watched, picked up on this, and it's like, if you really kind of pay attention, you can notice some frame hiccups in the cutscenes, and all to this point, most of Grand Theft Auto has been using in-engine / in-game, assets for cutscenes and everything like that. Red Dead 2 is a huge proponent of that because your outfits and everything like that will change in cutscenes and all that, but it still doesn't feel like it loses that visual fidelity that like, a decade ago would have been like a pre-rendered cutscene essentially. And yeah, so just like you can see what they are showing is representative of the game, but it's just so like mind-bogglingly like past what everybody else is doing. Like, it's my jaw kind of hit the floor at one point. And I was talking with another friend of mine today, and I was like, Red Dead 2 still looks better than games coming out today. And this looks so many leaps and bounds past even Red Dead 2 that it's just like,
Yeah.
it's you really start to understand why this game has taken so long, why it's going to take even more time, and why it's going to be the most expensive game probably ever developed, because it's just insane.
Reports say that that GTA 6 it costs somewhere around $2 billion to produce, which I believe someone, I'm not going to quote this directly, but I believe that is more expensive and also a longer build time than the Burj Khalifa, which is a fun fact.
Wow.
Yeah. And obviously, look, there's really no doubt that GTA 6, regardless of if it launches with an $80 price tag or a $100 price tag, will make that money back. Opening weekend at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
Just knowing how many units, a Rockstar Games title releases or sells. But I think there's a few things that I picked up on when I was watching it, and I think it really is. One, there's some visually, yeah. So it looks nice to just look at,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also the things that really caught my eye are the level of items on it, like the amount of items that are just like scattered on the floor or like in the background or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then also there's certain kind of like the frames feel busy, right? Like when every shot has architecture, there's movement with like birds or like something in the distance, the water, the planes, cars, there's all this kind of activity that makes it feel alive and bustling.
Mm-hmm.
But then you kind of go in a little bit more kind of granular, and you notice, like, you were talking about the start of the trailer where Jason is shirtless, kind of coming down from his house, and there's a part where like he's moving like this, or like he does some sort of move, and you can see his muscles kind of like not jiggle, but like they kind of flex, and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that is also it's a level of quality that maybe we've only ever seen with female characters before, but that is applied to across the board, right? Like all characters will have some sort of like rig on top of their skeleton to give them more of that kind of organic feel, which is crazy.
One of the details that I really like, because we're talking about detail, is in this one shot where Jason is getting a 6-pack of beer from like a convenience store or something.
Yeah.
And if you look at the beers themselves, the like fluid in it is like jiggling like with so much like weird like quickness that like a real bottle has, and it's just like that is such like a weird
step and stuff,
tiny animation
or
detail.
like in a bar they have like a bottle of beer kind of on the side, and you can see it kind of bubbling, or like kind of just like a fizzy drink.
Mm-hmm.
It really is crazy. I think it's for me, I think that Naughty Dog is up there as one of the best developers. I think their visual fidelity, what Naughty Dog does, even with like something like Uncharted 4, is at a level that I think few game developers have ever hit.
Mm-hmm.
But what Rockstar is able to do by having that level of quality, but across an open world, and really letting the player immerse themselves in it, is I think what's really the crazy thing about it. And the second thing, I talked about the looks. The second thing is the story here. There's obviously kind of inspirations that you can take from what what they're inspired by, right? There's like parts of the game that are like, oh, that's kind of like the movie Heat, or like it's Miami Vice, which is obviously like a Vice City is based on Miami again, if you didn't know. But it has all these inspirations, but it feels very much so its own thing. I don't necessarily think, and look, I'm not a diehard Rockstar guy. I'm still getting through Red Dead Redemption 2 whenever I find the time, but it doesn't feel like it's just another Rockstar game. Like, it definitely is a Rockstar game, but I think the way that they're showing the story here it feels so much more intimate in a way that's not just like, oh, they're having sex. It's intimate in terms of like it's the story of these two people, and I'm oddly interested to see what that entails, how like where that journey goes
Hmm.
um going forward. And also kind of actually, do you have anything to say about that before I kind of keep going about random?
I was just gonna add in that with like GTA 5 specifically, that like it kind of hit those larger than life moments where it's about this crew and they're doing like getting involved with like the FBI, having like
Right.
international like spy stuff, and on top of this like very heat inspired like bank robber like escalating stakes all the time. And so yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely think
which is
that
cool.
the constricting of that scope to the more like you said, the more intimate kind of like it's about these two people. And the official website says, even in the story like little quick blurb is like they realize the deck is stacked against them and it's going to be like kind of like rags to riches, that sort of thing. And so yeah, I think that's definitely intentional, and I think that's also in a post Red Dead Redemption 2 world, I think that's the more interesting direction to take the narrative for it. Because like GTA
Yeah.
has kind of always had this you know uh vibe attached to it where it's like, yeah, it's the goofy run around shoot and drive cars game. And Red Dead was kind of like, Red Dead came in and was like, this is the
Serious
rock star you
narrative.
go to for the hitting story. And I think we're probably going to see a bit more of a combination of the two for GTA 6, or maybe even a closer, transition to like, oh no, like I don't want to give like GTA 4 and 5 and Vice City and San Andreas like their undue credit. Like those games do have like interesting narratives and everything, but I do think that like after Red Dead Redemption 2, the narrative kind of impacted a lot of people in a way I don't think that they were expecting, and I think that that's something that fans, even myself included, are going to be looking in GTA to see like what they do with it. And so I think to wrap that up, I think constricting that scope and making it a more intimate story is how they're going to be able to deliver a more impactful story in the long run.
Yeah, and there's a few random things I picked up on while watching the trailer. One thing I thought was interesting was it seems that they have a lot of, so the trailer is very much so like, hey, here's Jason and here's Lucia, and you're cutting between kind of their moments in life, as they're living out their life now that Lucia's free from prison, which it seems that Jason was not, there not too far back. Uh, and what's like Jason goes through several different looks throughout the course of this
Hmm.
trailer. The hairstyle is different, the facial hair is different, the out like the look, kind of the build that he has. He's not like fat or anything, at least not that I've noticed. But there's ways that they're showing off some of the customization in the game, which I think is interesting and cool, without kind of really drawing attention to the fact that, hey,
Hmm.
like, it's not just cutting to a menu and like having him just stand there and like swapping facial hair or whatever.
For sure.
So yeah, stuff like that is also cool to pick up on as you kind of take in the trailer.
I do think actually, to bounce off of that, I do think while it's not obvious in the trailer, I do think there is going to be like a weight kind of difference scale for both of them, because in some of the screenshots and in other parts of the trailers, the body types of just general NPCs is like dramatically different than
Yeah.
previous games too. Like a lot of the times, like the NPCs, like they conform to very specific types of people that you'll see like repeated and all that, but there's just like a lot of more dynamism for like different types of
Mhm.
bodies, for like skinny people, thicker people, that sort of thing. And the San Andreas was where I was going with
Mm.
this. San Andreas had a system like this where you could make, you could make CJ fat or whatever. And I that was also in Red Dead 2, but it's like a system that like I don't personally remember dealing with all that much, but then I've seen like, joke videos where people like use mods and stuff and like really heighten that and stuff. So it's like, I guess that they implemented it in that as well, but just like further ways to like, customize that character beyond just the clothing items that you get.
I'm looking at the website, dude. I did not know this website went this hard. What the hell?
There's tons of screenshots and animations. It's so cool.
It's 100%. There's a lot of screenshots, but like like you start and the website is a cinematic experience. Like it cuts to the title and then you go through and you see all these kind of animations and stuff. Yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, sorry, I was an audible like reaction to just the website here. But yeah, there's a lot to dig through for sure.
The website specifically has these little postcards for the different kind of like regions of the map.
Grass rivers.
This really, unlike the trailer, which again is very kind of focused on like the narrative elements, this lets you kind of explore little vignettes of these different regions. And so like you have like, Vice City and like the beach, and that's like kind of, I'm guessing that's going to be your main like city hub kind of thing. But then they have like this port that has been like kind of abandoned by the community, so it's like lower income areas. There's this place up in the mountains where you're going to get like your
Port Gellhorn.
Yeah, there's like you'll see it as you scroll down there. But yeah, you go to, there's like this natural area by a mountain. And they describe there being like, people off the grid and like conspiracy theorist people out there. That's where I feel like that's where you're going to get some of your wacky GTA kind of, side characters and all that.
Yeah.
Interactions with that. So, yeah, I mean, the music.
Shout out to the dude has the shirt that says "I love violence. Thank you, video games."
Yeah, that's great. The music in the trailer, I mean, we already knew it was going to have a great soundtrack, but it's just like, I really enjoyed the beginning of the trailer, specifically talking about music, where he's like riding in the car and the girl on the streets like, "Hi, Jason," or whatever. Yeah. But he has music going, and then it switches, while he's, sticking up that one store or whatever. Different radio station, different location. Now we're in the liquor store, different song in the background. Now we're in the car going past the police arresting people, different music. And then it gets into the main trailer song that they use throughout. But like, I thought that was a really interesting... I guess what I find so interesting about it is that the beginning of the trailer does not flow like a typical trailer does. Like, it very much is just like we're following this person throughout their day. And then once you hit the halfway point and they're like, Rockstar Games presents, that's when you get into the, big dramatic like theatrics of the trailer and everything. So I just thought it was a very interestingly constructed trailer from that perspective.
One thing to note is, obviously Grand Theft Auto games have car radio where when you get in the car, you can change radio stations, and there's going to be a whole discussion, I'm sure, later on, or probably already started, about people saying, "Oh, is it like what artists will be included, and what genres will appear, or whatever." Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's going to be an absolutely stacked radio list, but what I noticed was that there's at least two instances where you see Lucia wearing AirPods, and so I wonder if there's just a general kind of like because I'm literally on the website now, and under like of the 3 images they show for her, 2 of them she's wearing AirPods.
I didn't even think of that. So you could like, you could like maybe do like soundtrack while you're like on foot, not just in a car. That's insane. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, that'd be awesome if that's like what they're implying with that.
Because again, I'm literally just going through a website, and there's 3 images, and one of her is in jail, and then the other one's poolside, and one's like she's in a gym boxing, and the poolside and the boxing, literally AirPods. I mean, obviously they're going to be called like there's some, they're
going to be like Pear Pods, I think, because I think the Apple thing in GTA is Pear or something.
Okay.
So
yeah. A little bit of iCarly action, but no, it's there's certainly things that you can pick apart with what they've shown so far, and I'm sure a lot more will kind of come into context as we see more of the game. But right now, I mean, everything that they're showing is so. I'm not sure if this is exactly the words you said, Nick, when we started talking about this trailer, but it's just confident, and it's one of those things where when it's so confident that like they're showing you, and you know you're in good hands. Like this is like again, Rockstar is really at the top of their game, and they don't need versus something like what I said in my critique about Xbox releasing the news about Gears of War Reloaded on a random Monday. GTA like Rockstar could release this trailer at any point, against any event, right? And like as in there could be I'm gonna say this because it's on a roster, and even though it's probably a bad comparison, but we had this Borderlands 4 State of Play, right? They could have released this trailer the day and date of that Borderlands 4, and Borderlands 4 would have not stood a chance. Now, they wouldn't have because they're the same publisher.
Mhm.
But I'm saying there's really no game that would compete. They could release it any time, and it would still get this amount of buzz because it's quite frankly too big to fail, I think, at this point. But
I think what gets fans and like the general public excited about it too is, it's going to sound a bit surface level, but with Grand Theft Auto and Rockstar specifically, I don't think it's very hard to see where the millions of dollars go on the screen. Whereas, people have been begging like Pokemon and stuff. It's just like you have like the highest like budget property in the world. Why do your games look the way that they do? It's like that's not even a question with Rockstar. It's like, yeah, they have one of the highest selling games ever made, and you can see all that money is clearly going into the next game. So I think that's at least what gets me extremely excited about it too.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'm really looking forward to it. I've notoriously not played Grand Theft Auto 5, but I own it like on across 2 different devices. So I think it'll be another Doom situation that, come May next year, much like I'm playing through Doom right now, I'll probably be going into Grand Theft Auto 5 to experience that story firsthand. Because you were you were saying you were watching earlier about the more than playing. I thought you meant literally gaming videos, because that's what I do. I love if I can't play a certain game, if I can't get to it, I'll have it playing around in the background. Like I'll watch like a playthrough, or I like shout out like Christopher Odd, or I can't lyric or something, like for playthroughs of games. And yeah, I've experienced GTA 5 that way, and so I'm curious to actually firsthand experience it and then see. I don't know. I'm very excited for GTA 6. Obviously, it's no real surprise, and I'm really looking forward to kind of like this hype. It's just at what point does it become a fever pitch? And you're just like how do you? The last thing I'll say about it, right, is I think this is the start of. For some people, the start of the GTA 6 hype started years ago, but this is the start of we're almost a year out, and we have a release date. That release date might move, but we're going to be building up to this release, and I think normally I would feel so much pressure of. Is this a good comparison? I'll say it. It might offend both you and me, Nick, but. When a new IP like Starfield comes out from Bethesda, I am nervous, because I'm like, it's so much there's so much hype behind it, and I could definitely see something happening where Bethesda does something that just it wouldn't work, right? Like where people would tear it apart.
Mm-hmm.
And Starfield is a case where, but luckily both Nick and I really enjoyed it, but there's certainly people that did not, and there's certainly people that pick it apart. I don't see that is possible with GTA 6. the chances of this game not delivering, again, not narratively is really the question, but at a fundamental level, what GTA 6 is offering, no other game is really doing, you know?
Yeah. I It's interesting. Like, it's definitely not to the point where it would have any sort of dramatic impact on financials
Sales.
or, like,
Yeah.
perception of Rockstar in their games. I do think that
Yeah.
there is areas though where it, like, this won't be a 10 out of 10 for a lot of people, because
Sure.
Red Dead Redemption is a perfect example where anytime you bring up Red Dead Redemption 2, if you're not talking to, like, somebody like me that's just like a ride or die fan of that game, like,
Yeah.
people will be like, the intro is incredibly slow, it's boring, the controls are so clunky.
Sure.
Like, it has its
Sure.
its
I agree.
compromises to get to that point of, the level of simulation, the level of detail in the environments and stuff like that. So it's not without its compromises, and I think that is still a completely valid thing that people are probably going to have issues with in Grand Theft Auto as well. But
yeah,
like I said, like, it's not anything to be like,
well, but I think
is
that's
Rockstar
par for
done?
course, right? Like,
Rockstar is not
I think
good.
It's par for course because, I think I should say, maybe qualify what I'm saying. I'm not saying that GTA 6 will be a 10 out of 10, no other way about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more so the fact that, when you come into GTA 6, you have to know what GTA is. Like, you have to know what the expectation is, right? And that's more so, like, there is an expectation when you have a Bethesda game, and there was, I think, a higher chance that Bethesda would have stumbled that with Starfield than I think with Rockstar with GTA 6, where I think they know the formula, they know the promises that they're making, and they're confident on delivering that promise. And again, it might be crazy that, like, oh, you're saying this from a trailer, but, like, there's certain trailers that are so well, and not saying that trailers are the final end all be all,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a certain quality you can pick up with nearly every aspect of what we've seen on this game, be it this, from the website to the trailer, that it's just, it's a developer at the top of their game, for better or for worse. So.
Mm-hmm.
For worse, being the fact that they're spending billions of dollars on this game. So I'm sure Take Two is like, for worse. So we'll take for worse for now.
Yeah. It's good that we got that gut punch out of the way, because today we can all kind of hold hands and watch this trailer and be like, wow, I can't wait for a year from now when I hopefully get to play this. Like, I'm just so excited. And, like, this is coming from somebody who, like, I am a Rockstar fan. I've played a lot of their games. It's like, if I really sat down and thought about it prior to Red Dead Redemption 2, I don't think any of their games would have been in, like, my top 5 of all time. Red Dead Redemption 2 comes out, that is in my top 5. And so it's like, I am extremely curious to see how a studio like this follows up what I consider to be, like, a magnum opus game for them.
Sure,
and so it's like, I'm extremely curious to see what that looks like in any form.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is going to be a hell of a ride, but obviously we got some more time before we get there. In the meantime, though, the 2025 calendar has been freed up, and so there's probably going to be a lot of game dates announcements coming out next month, probably during the Summer Game Fest. Not just part of Summer Game Fest, but also just kind of surrounding it.
Mm-hmm.
I will also quickly shout out that a few games did get release dates last week. We had FBC Firebreak, the new game from Remedy that is the multiplayer shooter set in the Control. Oh, I guess all their universes. It's all connected.
Right, the RCU.
That is coming out on June 17th, 2025. Borderlands 4 is coming out September 12th. Ghosts of Yote is October 2nd. And, I will say, I think that's the big ones that are coming out. I will say, on the note of Borderlands, I meant to say this earlier and I forgot about it, but the wife and I, we're watching Teen Wolf. And if you don't know me, I'm a huge fan of werewolves. Like I just think werewolves are the coolest. If you put werewolves into a media, and I'm like, okay, I'm in. You got my attention. And so we're watching Teen Wolf, and there is an ad. And look, I was kind of like, I was cleaning up I was doing the dishes while I was watching, but I swear it was an ad for Stars. You know that I guess it's like a streaming service, Starz.
Mhm.
And so you can stream whatever. I don't know who owns Stars, but you can stream their movies and shows or whatever. But they had an ad, and it was for the Borderlands movie. And it was essentially them saying, you saw the Reddit threads, you saw the comments, now experience it for yourself. And I'm like, are they saying it's bad and that you should watch it because it's bad to see how bad it is?
I guess.
I was such a unique way to advertise the movie.
It's like what I said about Xbox. It's like at this point, it's like who cares? Who cares if you give it a thumbs down? Like it'll help us. Like
yeah. It's sort of like the Minecraft Block Party edition that's happening right now. You know, they're like, if people are going crazy in theaters. Let's make it a feature. That's exactly what it is. Anyway, that is it for our episode back from our short little hiatus. I hope you guys enjoyed. Nick, you got anything else to say about Borderlands or Grand Theft Auto or Gears of War or anything?
Man, it's a good day when we get a new Rockstar trailer. So
do you have a like this, try that?
I'll say this: if you like watching game trailers, try going outside, because sometimes we all need a little breath of fresh air after.
But it won't look as good as that GTA 6 gameplay, Nick. It won't look as good. I don't have a solid one, but I'll say this. If you like Grand Theft Auto and perhaps you're a little bummed out at the fact that it's not coming out for another year, take a look at Mind's Eye. It's from Build a Rocket Boy, the team that consists of former Rockstar developers, and it is described as a, quote, narrative-driven single-player action-adventure thriller set in the near-future fictional desert city of Red Rock, featuring, again, quote, best-in-class cinematics, high-octane driving, and explosive combat from game director Leslie Benzies. Again, this is really surprising. Nick and I were discussing this right before the podcast started. It comes out June 10th, so it is just about a month away from release, and it has all of the GTA energy that you can get while you're waiting for the real thing to come out later next year. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the podcast. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below saying whatever you felt about the Grand Theft Auto 6 trailer. You loved it, you hated it, whatever it is, let us know. And until next time, as always, have a good night, a good morning, and a damn good time.